Good evening. The Dimas City Council meeting will come to order. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now. The City Council chambers will be closed to the public pursuant to the Governor's Executive Order dated March 17, 2020. The City Council is authorized to hold public meetings via teleconferencing and to make meetings accessible electronically to all members of the public seeking to observe and to address the legislative body. All Brown Act provisions that require a physical presence of a city councilman or public for the city council meetings are waived. Ken, you talk about our procedure today.
Yeah, so the city council had the option of phoning in or being present at the city council meeting. Councilman John Ebner is attending the meeting via phone conference call, and the other 4 council members are physically present. If there is any vote that needs to be taken, that means that we would require a roll call vote on any of those actions. As far as public participation, the public had an opportunity to send email questions in prior to the meeting. We have not received any email questions to this point. The public is allowed to call in, is encouraged to call in, and provide any public comment during either of the 2 oral communication periods at the beginning and at the end of the meeting. If you'd like to call in and ask a question or make a comment, you can call 909-394, find my number, lost it, 394-6206. That number is also on the screen for the television as well as the streaming, and that'll remain on the screen throughout the meeting. There is about a 30-second delay between the live meeting and the broadcast, so we will, once we ask for comments, we will wait about 30 seconds to allow time for people to call in. If there are more than one person that calls in, we will put you in a queue, and you'll be patched into the city council chambers when it's your turn.
Mr. Mayor, can I make a comment?
We do have one public comment through email when we get to oral communications.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Okay, this is John.
Oh, yes. I was just going to say that Ken is coming through loud and clear, so Ken, strength of your voice is a model for everybody else to follow, just to let you know.
Thank you.
All right, and as everybody knows, John Ebner is teleconferencing in, so just so you know that. So all oral, like Ken said, all votes will be voice votes. Oral communications is a time for a 3-minute, under the provisions of the Brown Act, the legislative body is prohibited from taking or engaging in discussions on any item not appearing on the posted agenda. However, your concerns may be referred to the staff and set for discussion at a later date. If you desire to address the City Council on any item on this agenda other than the scheduled public hearings items, you may do so at this time or ask to be heard when the agenda item is considered. Comments on public hearings items will be considered when that item is scheduled for discussion. The public comment period is limited to 30 minutes. Each speaker shall be limited to 3 minutes. And due to the circumstances that we're under here on the COVID-19, Ken Duran will be monitoring the timing, and he'll wave at me or give me a signal when the 3 minutes is over.
The buzzer will go off, yeah.
Okay. Oral communication?
So I understand from Deborah that we do have one email communication that came in.
From Susan and Mitch Crawford, they emailed in that they are commending city staff on the daily email communication regarding COVID-19 and city, council, and state resources and recommendations. Also, they received a phone call today from the sheriff's station regarding San Dimas residents that might need help with food or prescriptions or a welfare check. It is great that the city is reaching out to assist those that might need help. Thank you, and please keep safe. We are not in the clear yet. Susan and Mitchell Crawford.
Thank you. Any additional, do we have any phone calls? Okay, I'm being told we have one phone call.
Welcome to the San Dimas City Council meeting. You're live.
Hey, good evening, Council. This is Maurice Cuellar, San Dimas Farmers Market, Advocates for Healthy Living. Just wanted to give you guys an update what happened this past Wednesday. First of all, I want to thank Mayor Badar for coming out, and the city manager, Ken, Parks and Rec, Hector, Sherry from Public Works. They've all been really helpful in making this happen, and the support of the council has been excellent. I just want to first thank everybody for that support. As far as vendors, we had 11 vendors. We had 6 certified producers, which included 3 farms, which had fruits and vegetables, a honey vendor, a microgreens vendor, and a plants vendor. In addition, we also had 5 prepackaged vendors, which included bread, spices, prepackaged tamales, hummus, and nuts. And as a reminder for everybody, we are still having the farmers market every Wednesday night, 4 to 8:30 p.m. There's also, we've added this week 3 ways that people can participate. One is in person at the farmers market. The second is we're actually offering an online delivery through our website, sandimasfarmersmarket.com. They can find a link to our online shop. And then the third way is online pickup. They can pre-order and then pick it up at the market. As far as reminders for everybody, we still are following the same LA County health rules, which is if you don't feel well, don't come out. We have other ways to get you whatever you need. We also require face coverings, which we have been giving them out if someone does not have one. We've actually been giving them out. You don't touch the produce. The vendors will give it to you. We have wash stations available to wash your hands, sanitizer also. We remind people to have their 6-foot social distancing and also to have quick transactions to keep the market moving. We have the market set up in a one-way oval path to minimize that social exposure. That's about it for tonight. I just want to thank you guys again, and thanks for the call.
Do we have anybody else? Okay, let's continue. Consent calendar. All items on the consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion unless members of the City Council request separate discussion.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Yes, John.
Hello. I'd like to just have the Arbor Day resolution read, and I'd also like Hector, if he has any comments to make about Arbor Day and the and things we're doing, to talk about those.
Okay, I think we're going to have some announcement about that tonight. Ken?
Yeah, we can have him either make that announcement now or at the oral or the city manager's comments.
What would you prefer?
Well, why don't, as Deborah's reading the Arbor Day resolution, I'll have Hector come in and he can make an announcement regarding the event.
Okay.
That sounds great. Fine.
Hey, John, I'm sorry I can hear you, but sometimes it's not as loud. I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah, that's weird. But I'll go off speaker. Yeah, so yeah, that's fine with me, the Arbor Day resolution and Hector's comments later on.
I think we go get him now? No, we've gone to get him. So he's going to come in to comment.
Okay, great.
Are we going to read this first?
Yes. Deborah, would you please read the resolution, please?
Whereas in 1872, Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than an estimated 1 million trees in Nebraska, and whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cutting heat and cooling cost, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in our city beautify our community, increase property values, and enhance the economic vitality of business areas. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Now therefore I, Emmett G. Bader, Mayor Pro Tem Ryan A. Viana, and Council Members Dennis Bertone, John Ebner, and Eric Weber do hereby proclaim April 25th, 2020 as Arbor Day in the city of San Dimas, and we urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. Further, we urge all citizens to plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations. In witness thereof, I, Emmett Bader, have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the city of San Dimas to be affixed this 28th day of April 2020.
Thank you. Hector Kisserman, our Parks and Recreation Director, would you like to say a few words about Arbor Day?
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, community members. Arbor Day is celebrated nationally on April 25th. However, and we did have an event planned for this past Saturday, but due to the COVID-19 pandemic, that was canceled. So the reason why we have Arbor Day, or have the proclamation to Arbor Day, Mr. Mayor, is because the city of San Dimas is recognized as a Tree City USA, and in order to keep that in good standing, one of the things that has to be done is for the city to, have a proclamation declaring Arbor Day as a day that is important to the community. So that's just one of the 4 requirements that are there for this Tree City USA recognition. So what we're doing instead of, because of the fact that we can't have the event, is staff is going to be, a couple of Facebook videos were posted giving some instruction to whomever wants to participate in planting trees. So what we have is we have some young saplings that we are going to give away. A sapling, it's a 1-gallon container, and it has a conifer and Afghan pine, as a matter of fact, and so you can come by and pick it up. And what we'd like to see is we'd like to see the children participate in this and plant that tree, and then send back videos or emails, telling us what and how they did the planting and how they're caring for the tree. And so from that list of those who are submitting those entries, we will then have another prize for them. We will have coloring books and maybe even a I Love San Dimas Trees t-shirt. So that is the plan. As you know, trees do sequester carbon. Carbon sequestration is a big thing with greenhouse gas effects and stuff. So having a healthy urban forest is important. So we appreciate all the efforts being put into those who are planting trees throughout the community, and also the council for their support and proclaiming April 25th, 2020 Arbor Day. Any questions? I can answer now.
Hector, how will the trees be distributed?
Much like we're doing the San Dimas Care program, people can come up to the front of the plumber building, and somebody there will give them the tree. It's just a 1 gallon pot, so it's very easy to transport. It's not anything large that won't fit in anybody's vehicle.
And that's tomorrow, Wednesday,
Yes, it is.
and the time?
From 10:30 to 1.
Right, is that the same time? I have a different time. A published time. Brad, could you?
Yeah, 1 to 3:30.
Okay.
think
We'll
that's
have
what
to
the
check on
press
that
release-
because I just asked Recreation Manager Tim Pagano, and I believe he said 10:30 to 1. But we do have, tomorrow is when we have the senior lunch program, and those two times may be getting confused because that lunch program is from 10:30 to 1. So,
Okay.
Tim? 1 to 3:30 for clarification.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. I just know that I just read something.
Good. Okay.
The only thing I read. No.
And-
Okay, thank you,
Anything
Hector.
else?
Does anyone have any questions of Hector? John, you have anything of Hector?
No, thank you very much. Very important subject.
Okay. Do we need a roll call for the consent calendar?
Yes.
Ms. Black, would you take care of that?
Councilmember Bertone,
Aye.
Councilmember Ebner,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Viana,
Aye.
Councilmember Weber,
Aye.
Mayor Bedar.
Aye.
The record will reflect a 5-0 vote for the approval of consent calendar.
Okay, we'll move on to other business. Status report of the emergency response continuing operation plans, local government. Ken?
Yeah, I've got a number of updates regarding the city's participation and response to the COVID-19 pandemic. First off, the city continues to provide essential services to the community, including public safety, street and park maintenance, conducting building inspections where practical, providing plan checks and inspections for utility and construction projects that are still ongoing, internal operations such as accounts payable and payroll, and providing the community with public information. Services that have been suspended include all public buildings are closed to the public, though we still have staff working out of them and all phone services are operational. Park amenities are closed, however, restrooms remain open. All recreation programs have been suspended. Overnight parking enforcement is suspended, and all public meetings except city council meetings are suspended. The city initiated a San Dimas Cares program a few weeks ago. It's well underway. The program consists of providing meals and groceries and staple supplies through either drop-off or pickup to residents. Various local businesses have donated meals, food, and supplies. In addition, the city collects dropped-off supplies twice a week. The program is coordinated by the city's Parks and Recreation Department in coordination with our community volunteers. If people would like to know how to donate or would like to be a recipient, they can go to the city's website for more details. The Safer at Home orders from the state and the county are still in place through at least May 15th. Both the state and the county have outlined some benchmarks to meet and the steps that would be taken before the orders would be modified. Emphasize modified, because depending on who releases the order, both the state and the county have indicated a slow rollout of modifications to the order. It's not going to be like a light switch where one day all services will be restored. It's going to be a slow rollout, and there still will be stay-at-home and social distancing and masking requirements for an extended period of time. For example, at today's press conference, the governor laid out more details as far as what types of restrictions might be lifted and in what phases. For example, the next phase of relifting of restrictions might be on lower risk businesses and manufacturers, schools, and daycares. Next might be higher risk businesses such as hair salons or businesses where it's hard to avoid close contact with customers. And lastly would be the lifting of restrictions on large gatherings. The governor also indicated that even as businesses are reopened, as I mentioned, social distancing and face coverings would still probably be required. The only hint on the timing of when all this might occur is that the governor indicated that the first phase, which would be the releasing of more businesses open to the public, and open to the public may be that some businesses may only allow for pickup delivery and not in-store shopping. But the indication would be that that phase might be in a matter of weeks. However, he also emphasized the fact that the other phases, phase 3 and 4, could be in a matter of months. So there is no specific time frame. The other thing that's important to recognize is that even if the state relaxes or modifies some of the restrictions, the county may still impose further restrictions. It will be on a county-by-county basis if counties want to continue with more stringent requirements. So we haven't heard, the county did the other day outline their benchmark plan of the criteria that they will use when they make determinations on when they will start modifying the orders, but they haven't given any indication on the timing of when that might occur. We also receive routine phone calls from individual businesses in town asking us when the city will allow their business to reopen. I want to emphasize, and what we tell the callers is that the orders in place are from the state and the county, and in particular, the county is the one who regulates when those orders would be modified. We emphasize to them that the city is not in a position to making determinations on what businesses may reopen or when they may reopen. We're following the lead of the county health department, who are the experts in this area. We also understand that some people have expressed that they understand that there are some surrounding cities that are allowing restaurants to reopen. To my knowledge, that's not the case. In fact, we confirmed with Laverne, which is one of the cities that was mentioned, and they have not relieved any restrictions on opening of restaurants. I participate in a countywide conference call with city managers throughout San Gabriel Valley on a weekly basis, and to my knowledge, there is no city that has chosen to relieve any restrictions outside of the county's orders at this point. So that is probably misinformation that is out in the community. However, that doesn't mean that there may be individual businesses who are defying the county and the state orders and operating their businesses in non-compliance with the orders. That may be occurring, and if that's the case, the enforcement agency in the city of San Dimas is the San Dimas Sheriff's Department, and if there are violations, the protocol would be that they would approach the business and issue them warnings that they are in violation of the county's order to not be open. The next item that I want to touch on is, I know the council is aware, and I'm not sure how aware the community is, of a program statewide and countywide, which is referred to as Project Room Key. This is a collective, collaborative effort by the state and the county to secure hotel and motel rooms for vulnerable people experiencing homelessness. It provides a way for people without a home to stay inside during the stay-at-home orders. The County of Los Angeles is looking to secure 15,000 rooms countywide. The clients are not those who have been tested positive for the virus or under quarantine. The clients would be those who are a vulnerable population, such as those who are over 65 or with underlying illness. The clients would be screened by the county LASA, which is the homeless association that handles homeless programs throughout the county, and they would be referred to a hotel. It's not a walk-in basis where somebody can walk up to a hotel that's been identified and check in. They have to be referred by the county to that facility. The hotel is managed by trained professionals with experience in working with the homeless population. It's staffed with healthcare workers and secured by private security. The clients who are at the hotels will receive health screenings on a daily basis. They'll be provided 3 meals a day, and social service workers will work with the clients to try and match them up with needed services. The city has been notified by the county that a hotel in San Dimas is being considered for a potential site. An agreement has not yet been signed, so there is no hotel that has an actual agreement to take in these clients at this point. The city has been working with the county to identify additional information and get more details about how a hotel, if it is operated in San Dimas, would operate and the parameters of how it would operate. The city will be posting tomorrow morning an updated frequently asked question sheet on our website, which talks about the program or project Room Key in general terms, not specifically about any hotel in San Dimas, but it kind of outlines the general parameters, the requirements, and the operational characteristics of this program. So that'll be on our website if someone would like more information about that program. So that's all the information that we have on that program at this point. We're still in discussions with the county on getting information from them. So those are the highlights that I wanted to emphasize tonight as far as an update on the pandemic. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions regarding any of the items that I talked about or any other questions that you might have regarding the city's response to the pandemic.
Any questions? Ken, I'd just like you to touch on the fact that summer is approaching, and I realize the county has all these restrictions in place, and the state and everyone else, but at what point do we need to make a decision on if we're going to continue our summer projects, our after-school care, whatever the programs are we offer at other parks and all that stuff? When do we plan on coming up with a decision on that? It's got to be getting pretty close.
Yeah, in fact, I was going to touch on that under my city manager's report, but I'll take it up now because it is related to this. Our city staff has been working on trying to come up with some exploring potential options for some modified programs for summer recreation programs for the summer. Again, it's all contingent, though, on the restrictions, when restrictions might be lifted, what restrictions still may be in place. So our recreation staff over the last weeks have been trying to put together what might be some modified programming. So we're working towards how we would implement those programs, when we might be able to implement them, and what those might look like. But it's all going to be, again, situational depending on when we know when some of these restrictions are lifted. I think what we're looking at is that, within the next couple of weeks, we have to make some hard decisions on some of the programs because of the ramping up period. So what we're planning on is bringing back to the council, if hopefully within 2 weeks, we might know a little bit more about what restrictions might be lifted and what might be in place. And then we can bring back a slate of proposed programs to the council at your next meeting and explain what we're looking at. It definitely would be modified. There are certain programs that we cannot offer. Others would have to be modified again, depending on, if social distancing and masking is a continued requirement throughout the summer, that really limits some of the recreation programming. But we want to try and offer, if we can, anything that will be an alternative to the community once they're able to move about more freely in the community. So that's about the best answer. It's I think within the next 2 weeks we'll probably know a little bit more, but at least we're positioning ourselves that when the time comes and we may be able to offer something, we'll be able to roll that out. And it probably will be that it'll be rolled out in phases. It may be that one type of program we can start at a certain time, then maybe in a couple of weeks, when new restrictions are lifted, we might be able to roll out another program. So it's not going to be like in the past where, June 1st, we roll out all of our recreation programs for the summer. And I think clearly the direction that we're hearing is that large gathering events are probably going to be restricted at least through the summer, if not through the end of the calendar year. So that could impact some of our very large events. But again, we won't know that until some of these restrictions are lifted.
Okay. Any questions?
Yeah, Ken, a couple things. A few meetings ago, we presented on the continuity of operations plan or continuity government plan. Is there any update on that? I know we were going to update some elements of that.
Yeah, and I know staff has been working on that, but I don't have the status of what that is. But I know staff has been working on it.
Okay. And then I think in the same meeting, we talked about remote capabilities for council, potentially looking at Surface Pros or iPads. I know there was discussion or a presentation or in a packet or something that there was more equipment, or maybe one of your updates that staff received. I'm not aware of anything that's come to council, so is there any update on what a remote capabilities plan would be? I know cities like Glendora and others are using Zoom video conferencing for their continuity of government plan to a certain degree, and in honor of Arbor Day, to save some trees, perhaps I'm fine going digital without having to keep killing paper.
Yeah, and we'll continue to explore that. We haven't gotten to that detail yet, but I think especially if this continues with this mode of operation as far as council meetings, it may be, and my understanding is that most cities are fully off virtual. Most cities are virtual council meetings now. I think we're one of the few that still actually have live presence. And if we move, especially if we move in that direction, we need to provide you with the tools to do that.
Yeah,
So we'll continue to explore that.
yeah, I'd like that's a priority to me. Yeah. Quite literally, if something turned for the worst, and even not to be able to see John at this point. I mean, I'd rather the technology's there to be able to have John visually with us. I'd like to see that soon. Another city.
Here.
Yeah, there we go. All right. And I do know Councilman Ebner's been asking for a tablet type of thing for a while too, so I think it's a good opportunity to make the investment. Other cities, as they prepare for the rolling out, I was talking to a city manager in a city up north this afternoon, and their council has adopted an exposure reduction plan. And I think that may be something, whereas we could start a campaign to assist largely with the principles that are being put out from the governor's plan as well as the county on preparing for a time when businesses may open. And I'm not saying that we need to be in a position to do anything other than what the county and the governor's orders are. But I do think that in anticipation of the restrictions lifting in a phased, systemic process, that we should have some sort of exposure reduction campaign to educate business owners on what they need to be mindful of and what proper social distancing and hygiene related matters they perhaps should adopt when they do that. So if we can start looking at an idea like that or a concept like that to see, I Googled it too, and there seems to be some other cities too that are starting to think a little bit forward about what that's going to look like so their businesses are prepared. I'd love to see something like that moving forward.
Yeah, and we actually started to gather that information. There's a couple surrounding cities that are starting to adopt those kind of business continuity plans. So we're looking at that, as well as we're also starting to look at for our operations, as far as when we begin to open up City Hall or begin to provide fuller services, how are those services going to be delivered? And again, it's going to be a slow rollout, so we anticipate that we need to have some short-term, middle-term, and long-term plans on how we're going to roll that out. And so we're working. In fact, tomorrow we're going to be putting together a task force within the organization to start looking at that.
Okay. And have we received any of our updates, our quarterly updates from HDL related to sales tax for the first quarter of this year?
Yeah, in fact, we have a meeting, I believe, on Thursday of this week with our with the consultant, but we've actually been receiving, they've been providing us with data on sales tax and property tax. So we have some good projections as far as what the impacts are for what would be second quarter this year, and then projecting out what would be the first and second quarters for next year.
The first quarter, this was kicking off, I think, in March. And then second quarter, obviously, it's going to take the majority of second quarter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
we actually have I don't have the numbers in front of me, but we actually have the dollar amounts, and we've actually placed those numbers in our preliminary budget.
Good news. Okay, cool. And then lastly, the senior feeding program I saw was featured on a video White Axe did in the county. Can you talk a little bit about that and what the highlight was? I understand it was like a pretty pretty good thing that we're doing with this SD Cares, it seems.
Yeah, that we provide, our senior lunch program, the meals are provided by the YMCA, excuse me. And the program is under the umbrella of the county. And so the county CEO's office approached the YMCA and said, can we get an update on how you're providing food delivery in this new environment? And so for one day, they kind of shadowed the YMCA on how they prepare the food, how they deliver it to the venues. And the YMCA suggested that our food delivery program here in San Dimas was a good model for them to take a look at. So they came out one day and shot some video, which I believe is part of the comprehensive video that was shared with the CEO's office.
Cool. Yeah, it's really good work. I'm very proud of everybody that's involved with
Yeah,
that.
we've actually, and again, it's kind of like a model program. Our staff really, the coordinator of the programs, when they came out and saw it the first time, they said, other agencies, cars were lined up around the block. They were kind of coming in haphazardly, and we were very organized. So our Parks and Recreation Department did a really good job in coordinating that.
Thank you.
John, you have anything?
No, thank you for asking.
I believe he said nothing.
Wait, we're not on council member comments yet, are we?
No, not yet. Hang on.
Okay, yeah, I got something then.
Okay. All right, other business, we already went through that. Okay. Oral communications, members of the audience speaking are limited to 5 minutes, or as may be determined by the chair. We'll open it up for oral communications. Do we have any telephone calls?
If we can wait just a couple of seconds because of that 30-second lag, so we'll wait about 10 or 15 seconds to see if anybody's calling in.
Yeah, that 30-second lag thing, did that start with just the phone calls, or did it actually start with the television?
No, it's, between our broadcast and when it actually goes out on the feed, there's about a 30-second.
Yeah, there are people asking us if we failed to do the flag salute.
Yep.
So when we started it, now they're asking if they did it. So just in fact, so everyone knows, we did do the flag salute, maybe before we started broadcasting. Okay.
Welcome to the City of San Dimas City Council meeting. You're live.
Mr. Mayor, what a wonderful job you've done tonight, and I want to thank Mr. Duran in expressing the city plans and the COVID-19. It was a very, very good job. As we approach the budget for next year, I would really like to see you put back on maybe the next 2-year election another fund or tax increase to cover the sheriff's department, and that would be a property tax, not a sales tax. I would like you to start discussing it for the following year, not this year, for the next election, and I would like funds strictly for the sheriff's department, and I would like it to be a property tax. And I think the sheriff is going to have to come up with some sort of a plan of what's required and what's not required. And I'd also like to see that some of the money that we do receive, if it's passed by the residents for the sheriff's department, that they have a reserve also if we have any sort of problems, and that they don't have to take it out of the general fund.
Anything else, Mr. Gonzalez?
No, sir. I hope you consider my comments, and I don't know when we're going to meet again as Public Safety Commissioner, but there was a couple things I'd asked for at the Public Safety Commission meeting that I'm not sure exactly how and when we're going to be able to get responses of the questions that I asked, but I would appreciate that you let us know when we'll be able to get together, at least, if nothing else, do it by telephone.
All right, Ken Duran's sitting here, as you know, and I'm sure he'll get back to you with an answer to that question.
Very good job, Mr. Mayor, and Ken, thank you very much. Great job.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else? One?
Welcome to the City of San Dimas City Council meeting. You're live.
Yes, hi, this is Bobby Mathis here. I want to thank MSR for successfully becoming the mayor. It's great to see beautiful faces up there rocking and rolling during city council. Great to have this amazing change. Looking forward to anticipate great things. And it's exciting. Let's see that. And I wanted to talk, by the way, and for mayor, I want to thank all the people that voted. And they are seated, prevailed. I want to congratulate the fantastic human being. And I just want to thank him for helping me accomplish that driveway approach. And Kendra, thank you. We're just got the trivial news, but thank you very much for that. I'll just keep in touch. So, and stay from the coronavirus.
Thank you.
Okay, take care.
Thank you, Mr. Mathis. Any
Good one.
additional?
Have a good one. Let's go.
Any additional? Being notified that there are no more oral communications from the community. City manager?
Yeah, a couple of items I want to update on. First is the Via Verde Walking Path project began the beginning of April. It's being conducted in two phases. So the first phase has been under construction. Much of the demolition has taken place. We're waiting for some materials to come in, and then we'll be pouring the material for the walking path in the near future. And then we'll open up that portion of the path and then start working on the second phase. That whole project should be completed sometime by the end of May. The budget was alluded to, and I want to give you an update on where the staff is with the budget. Staff continues to work on the budget. Departments are working on their individual budgets, where they were working on them before the crisis hit. That slowed down the process, and now with how long and prolonged this crisis is lasting, it's made us even take a look, different looks at the budget. So right now, our staff is working on a couple of phases of the budget. One would be what we're calling a normal budget, would be the normal types of expenditures and projects. If we were, had the revenue sources that we thought we would have going into next year. And the other is we're looking at what we're calling a bare bones budget, a budget which anticipates a loss in revenue this year and looking into next year. So we actually have a first draft of one of those budgets that we're reviewing right now. And the departments are providing me with the bare bones budget later this week. And then we'll be sitting down and kind of, as a departments and as a staff, kind of putting together our priorities. And then we'll be bringing back some of these options to the City Council in May. It most likely will mean that we may have a couple of special study sessions with the council in May so that we can get through some of these items. And again, it's a moving target because we don't know how prolonged some of these businesses may be shut down, and that will be impacting our sales tax, and same thing with the hotels and our occupancy tax. So our budget process is moving forward. We anticipate that we would have, again, reviews of the draft budgets with the council throughout the month of May and into early June. And then we still would be planning on adopting a budget in some form by the first meeting in July. The likelihood would be, though, that that budget would be something that would be a living document in that we may be revisiting that within the first couple months or the first quarter as we know more information. So it's going to be a fluid process this year. I've been in consultation with a number of other cities who are kind of taking a similar approach. And so that's kind of the status. Once, hopefully by the end of this week, we'll have a little bit better of a schedule so you can put some dates in your calendar as far as when some of these special meetings might occur. But it definitely has been a very challenging process to try and anticipate what our revenue sources are going to be so that we can actually find where our expenditures would fit into our revenue projections. So those are the two updates I have. If you have any questions on either of those or anything else, I'd be happy to answer them.
Yeah, I would think that when you're preparing the budget, that you would think about the worst-case scenario instead of putting things in that we may not be able to do. But I think there's going to be a tremendous loss of revenue, and that's how the budget should be constructed.
That's exactly the approach we're taking. I mean, you know me, I'm a very fiscally conservative person, so we're being very fiscally conservative in this. So we are anticipating revenues on a worst-case scenario.
I just want
I had a question and comment.
Go ahead, John.
Okay, so I want to offer a countervailing opinion to what Dennis just said. So I don't know what the budget's going to look like at the end, but I would like to make sure that the council is getting options, and in a couple respects. One is that we had talked when we were doing the first session about the departments giving us their list of projects or giving a number of projects that they like to do, even if we can't do all of them, so that the council can weigh in. And it's been a while since we had a session on the budget, obviously for obvious reasons. But I want to make sure the council is able to weigh in, especially we've got a new member on the council, so we want to make sure we all get to weigh in on the options. The second comment I would say, and this is what I was going to say in my comments later on, so I'm probably not going to have much else to say, but is that in an emergency, it's very possible that we might want to use some reserves, because that, in my opinion, is the reason that I am so conservative on building up the reserves, that if there's a real emergency, we may need to use them to continue to serve our community. So I would just put that forward, so that I'm hoping staff doesn't come with a depression era budget and say, hey, this is what we came up with, that kind of thing.
No, our intention would be, the council, was very clear that they wanted to look at options, and that they wanted the, directors or the departments to present, what programs that they were projecting. And we're planning on that. That'll be part of the process. There is no doubt we're using reserves. I mean, we will need to dip into reserves to meet our obligations for this current fiscal year. And then it's just a matter of how much reserves that we want to use for ongoing operations for next year. Because our revenue, we were probably looking at reserves for next year, since the measure did not pass, for just our general operating. And with the condition that we're losing a significant amount of revenue, there is no doubt that we will be using reserves. The question is just how much and what projects we want to include, because every project draws down the reserves even further. So that is definitely a given.
There's no question, John.
I agree. And there's also a point where you go too far into the reserves. And so kind of like one thing that Ryan has been talking about over and over again is an audit where we really find out, what are we doing that we don't need to do, that kind of thing. And what are we doing well and what are we doing poorly and all that kind of thing. So there's a lot of different options, using reserves, streamlining, outsourcing, which I do not like outsourcing, as you know, but in emergency times, sometimes you got to do these things at least temporarily. So that's what I'm saying. Just options galore is what we should be looking at, and the council should really be in there at the table, helping to guide where this thing is going. That's all.
Ken, I just wanted to say I agree that we should use some of our reserve, but we should be prudent about it. We don't want to, what do we have, $18 million? We don't want to use it all. I think we have to look to more in the future than just 1 year.
I agree.
And I'll add, just to piggyback on what Councilmember Bertone and Ebner said, that I do agree that there has to be, and council meetings ago when we talked about projecting finance and recovery pertaining to post-COVID-19, that we have to be able to project the anticipated revenues moving forward. And so I do agree that there is going to be a pull from the reserves in the next budget. I think that probably is going to be finite. But I do want to, as the other council members have talked about, see under the hood and make sure that we see. And I'm also curious to see the priorities for which directors had on the table, that they also want to remove in terms of their own prioritization for their departments. I think it's important that council understands, and especially when it comes back, when you put it all together for what the ultimate recommendation is, that we're able to see, what is something that's not there. One last thing is, it's always bothered me that it's possible for 3 departments to be working on something and not collaborating with each other on it. In other words, if 3 departments had a project in a specific place, like a park, for example, and there was an appropriation that would solve that problem for 3 departments, I think that yields the biggest community benefit in terms of investment for prioritization. But if they're siloed in their budgeting, then they may not be aware of that. And I know when talking to Larry Stevens a little bit in the past, that there was some siloing that, not everyone's aware of what everyone else is working on. So I think now's the time, as John and Dennis have talked about, we need to be smart and, make that dollar work as best as it can for the citizens of San Dimas.
Eric?
Ditto, I guess. I've got a lot to learn on the budget, that's for sure. I'm definitely of the same mind of the other council members. Part of that learning process is going to include what Mayor Pro Tem Viana was saying, is seeing those projects that may not typically make it to us, and seeing the priorities of staff, and I think that's going to be the best way that I can lap up as much of this as I can for the time being. I know our budget's going to be a challenge now and for many years in the future, probably long after my term is up.
Thank you. I echo everyone's concerns about the budget. I do know that, a year ago we really talked about, and we started looking under the hood, as Ryan said. And I think even though we are in a bad situation right now, we're spread out all over the world, but I think I'm willing to host several study sessions where we had an opportunity to meet with the directors. Okay? Each one. And like Ryan was talking about, several things, a project occurs. Let's take the community park here, the park, or the sidewalk. Then we had the lighting, and then start talking about what Parks and Rec might need, to assist them later down line, with electrical and stuff like that. It just seems to me, and I could be 100% wrong because I'm not involved in it, but it seems like Parks and Rec start it, then they get their finish, and then they send it off to Public Works, and then Public Works mess with it a little bit, then it comes back. Wouldn't it be better to have Public Works and Parks and Rec and Planning sit in the same meeting, the 3 of them, and start it at the beginning, and then come up with a solution? Each one have a little piece of that pie, but let's develop what that piece of that pie is, up front. And then what it says, because I've heard numerous times over the last 13 years, well, we've got to look at it again because Public Works changed it, or somebody else changed it. But if we're starting off fresh and just working at it, I think that's the best way to do these things. And it's very important that we really truly work on the budget where everybody knows what's out there. Let's use an example. Somebody puts in a budget request for $100,000. When it gets down to the paring down, when it comes out of the administration's office, and it's not there, but maybe the council says, we can't give them $100,000, but maybe we should give them $50,000 because we don't want this to continue to go down. Problem is we got lots of projects right now, and deferred maintenance keeps coming up. And that's where we're going to have budgetary problems. So I think we need to truly focus on what we can do to keep our level up so we don't fall so far behind that our parks go down, our streets go down. I think we got to start looking way ahead of us, way ahead. And so, I would appreciate what you're doing. I just think that we're going to have more meetings and talking about where we're at. So, thank you.
Just if I could comment on your first point regarding the cooperation, I will admit that in the past that was occurring, the silo, but I think this year we've had some projects where we haven't done that. We've actually, brought the parties or the departments together, started collaboratively working on the project. Doesn't mean that it still doesn't exist to some degree, but I think we're trying to move away from that process.
The one thing I want to say just on that, though, I don't not want to. I'm not trying to defame, our prior staff, our prior directors. They did a hell of a job. Look where we have. We have some money in the bank. We could be in a lot worse shape. So they did just a great job. But now we seem to have some younger and more innovative ideas. Let's just see how it works. But God knows I don't want to take away from Teresa, Larry, Krishna. They did a fabulous job, and that's what got us here. Just like the prior city managers that we've had. Bob Poff set that tone. Blaine, Ken, reality is we're a good city, we're a firm city, and we got to stay solid. Okay. I think half the stuff we just said was council members' reports at meetings. Council members' report on meetings attended at the expense of the local agency.
Mayor, the city attorney.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
That's okay, Mr. Mayor. I don't have anything to report tonight.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay, members of council. Council members' reports from meetings attended at the expense of the local agency. John, you do anything?
Spending the city's money like crazy. No, I didn't do anything.
Thanks, John. Individual members, starting with John.
Well, thank you again. No, looking forward to getting back to City Hall. So hopefully next meeting.
Super. Thank you. Eric?
First of all, thank you to staff for working on the farmers market. I was very pleased to see that was back up and running. We were able to make that work. I just think it's a good thing for the community to have something that gives some sense of normalcy for people to get outside and get their shopping done at the farmers market. I think it's a good thing for everybody all around. And I'm looking forward to the Arbor Day sapling planting. I'm going to take my son out tomorrow, and we're going to go get our sapling and get it planted in the yard, so I'm excited about that.
Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to echo Eric's comments with regards to the farmers market. Very happy with the way staff worked with the whole crew for Advocates for Healthy Living. Very innovative approach, I think, to both the delivery methodology with pickups and online orders, as well as the thought that went into the actual logistics behind it. So very good job. I looked at that frequently, studying it, and I'm happy, and I've gotten a lot of positive feedback about it. I wanted to take a moment to thank members of the community for following the safer at home orders issued throughout the county. Frequently, I get messages from members of the community every day with updates regarding the numbers. San Dimas, just before the council meeting, I checked, and we have 27 cases reported, 1 death in our community. 260 people have been tested out of our population that they show to be 34,516. There is testing available through the County of Los Angeles. I get a chuckle every once in a while. I actually have people in the city asking if Eric Garcetti is our mayor. That is not correct. Emmett Bedar is our mayor, so everyone understands that. The city of Los Angeles does joint press conferences with the County of Los Angeles, and so that's why a lot of the information that you're seeing is being put out jointly between the city and the county. But make no mistake that Eric Garcetti is not our mayor. Emmett Bedar is our mayor, and I'm very happy about that. If you're someone who's interested in getting tested for COVID-19 and you have symptoms and meet the criteria, you can do so by visiting covid19.lacounty.gov. Once again, covid19.lacounty.gov. there's a link there, and you can go ahead and get tested. If you're somebody who's an essential worker, first responder, or critical government worker, you can be asymptomatic and also request to be tested, and you would do that simply by clicking the essential worker or priority first responder or essential responder, I think it's called, link, and you'd be able to get that. I also wanted to thank the community. I wanted to thank everybody for coming out yesterday. There was a parade to show appreciation for our city staff, for our sheriff's department, our essential healthcare workers, and all other essential workers and fire department. I saw the mayor was out there with Captain Berg. There's a nice thing on social media about it. So I thank everybody that's been doing that. I thank the sheriff's department as well and the fire department that have making birthdays and other things special for people when they're stuck at home. So thank you very much for that. I also wanted to thank SD Cares, the San Dimas Cake Company, Sweet and Savory, the Chamber of Commerce, the Sheriff's Department, our community liaison, and all the volunteers that have come out to make that program a success. Seeing the people that you're helping, I think, is phenomenal. I've heard great feedback about it, and I believe we've maxed out the allocation of meals that I think we're able to provide at 150 plus, I think, meals at this particular point. I think what started out as a pretty nifty idea has definitely served this community well during this pandemic, and I thank everybody that's been involved with that. Second to last, National Night Out, I know, has been pushed back, I think, to October. I wanted to thank everyone that's been working on that and acknowledge the San Dimas Heroes organization, who's also working with the city, who's collaborating together to make this event a success. I think it's going to be a good opportunity this year. A little different challenges with the time of year that it's going to be, but I think it'll be as exciting as the Easter event was, and I look forward to that. And the last thing, during the last 2 weeks, we have a number of events that come up, and there's all these days and things of that sort that come out. Last week was Administrative Professionals Day, and I wanted to thank our city clerk, Deborah Black. I did so on social media, but I definitely wanted to do it publicly and say that, when you look at the administrative tasks, the one person that council members interact with a lot is the city clerk, and that's everything from the minutes that go into our reports to making sure we get in our paperwork on time and making sure that all the real technical stuff that sometimes can take some time for us to research is in order. And I'm eternally grateful for all the help you've given to me and to the city since I've been here. And I think that you do so many good things that people maybe take for granted sometimes, but it's the smaller things that people don't see sometimes that are the big things. And you're there like our rock every council meeting, making sure we're on point, keeping us in order, and making the city work. So Deborah, thank you so much. I really appreciate your service to this community, and I am very grateful you're here with us. And lastly, if I hear anything about my mask, I want you to know I supported a small business, and it was handcrafted and sewn, and I encourage all of you to support small business. That's all I have. Thanks, Mayor. And I like your mask too, Mayor.
Yes, I just wanted to remind people, even though the city hall is closed, there are still people working here. So if you have questions, you can feel free to call the city hall and just tell them what department you want to speak to. As far as that goes, I'd like to just mention, which we mentioned before, about the senior lunch program. And if you have questions about that, ask for Parks and Recreation Department. Last week, April 22nd, we gave out 875 meals, and so it's really something that's fantastic. And so, as I said, if you have questions, just call the City Hall. There'll be someone here to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, once again, it is great to be last, because somebody says everything about everything. So, but thank you, Ryan, so I don't have to go in great detail. Everything he said, I had to just package the notes ready to go. We could do this for the next 3 hours, but I think we'll move on. The one thing I do want to mention is the fact that Via Verde Park, the walking path, it is still being worked on. Unfortunately, due to COVID-19, the vendor had a difficulty picking up product metal, so they've been delayed, but I believe they're starting back this week. And so the project's going forward, and hopefully we can get the second half of the track done soon, and people can use that for walking. Okay? The other question that came up several times today about closed restaurants. Okay? We have several restaurants in town that are doing takeout, drive-by, any way you want to get it, they're doing it. But we do have a few restaurants that have decided to just close. And I want you to understand that the city is not involved in telling them to close or anything like that. It's the owner-operator's prerogative to, if he wants to subject his employees to this or whatever. So we do not have the ability to tell them to open their business and serve food. Okay? You know, one thing I'd like Ken, if later down the line, there's been several phone calls from people who, although we suspended parking on the streets during this issue, some people have called and say, hey, are we having more burglaries because we're letting cars park on the street, or are we having less burglaries? I'd like to maybe get a report from the sheriff if there's been an uptick, because there are certain people out there who would like us to just waive totally the parking requirement, and they want to know if crime has gone up or gone down. So I know it might be difficult, but it's a question that's being asked.
All right, I'll make sure the captain gives us some statistics.
Okay. Okay, after we adjourn tonight, we're going to go into closed session. We have conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation. Conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigations, and public employee performance evaluations titled the city manager. We all ready to adjourn? Ready to adjourn. Adjourned.